Okay, so continuing the processing of our favorite architectural shots. And sometimes you have things in your shot you just love, but to help strengthen the overall shot, you might have to sacrifice them. So for instance, I love this little perfect rim that I was able to get of those window shutters, but then it gets overtaken here. And I don't have it in my exposure anymore. So to make it all even, I might need to use the skew just to tug that out. Just barely. Because I can't go the other way, right? I can't tug this in, because then I actually lose content. And that's why we always roll out the dough. We never make it smaller. And so skew kind of limits, you can only go one angle at a time as you're changing it, and it helps move everything together so it doesn't get all wonky. And no matter what your taste in art is, we can all appreciate kind of clean geometric simplicity. And that's what this project is. One way that you can make your landscapes engaging with this project. Your architectural space is engaging. So I want to show kind of black and white, open, closed. And I actually like the little addition of that tree. And I want these to be perfectly spaced and even from the center, these brackets for the roof. So I'm looking at all the verticals, and now I'll check the horizontals, make sure they stay horizontal. I'll hit return. That will sharpen everything up. Looks pretty good. I can try just doing a straight scale and kind of shrinking it in and seeing if I can get that bar to show up in a way that I like on the one side. And then I can use the arrow keys and kind of shift everything to one side or the other. But I think I was better off before. So, before the last transformation. Yep. Okay, now, once you have it lined up as best you can, by lining up all your horizontals and verticals, it makes all the other angles that much more powerful and interesting. Like the changes in the size of these different shutters and the angles of these brackets and the angles in the reflection and in the shadows. Now all that's left is color processing it. But you can try some other things too. Like maybe since I don't have the white on that edge, maybe I don't really want it on this edge, so I'll just drag it out slightly. But in order to grow it from the center so everything remains centered, I'm going to hold down Shift and Option, and that way it will scale up from the center. Instead of just from one side. Like that. And I can see the difference. That was my original shot. This is it processed. It's just kind of tightened up. It doesn't feel like it's bending in at the top anymore with my sensor. Instead, it's a flat view, like I was floating above instead of having to look up at the building. It's like I'm floating halfway up the building and getting this shot straight on. Okay, now some color processing. Adjustment layers, levels. Even though it's beautiful light conditions, my histogram is nicely balanced Doesn't need much. I don't know if I want the darks to go that dark. Anyway, so I'm gonna barely goose that. I always like to play with the mid-ranges just to see. And yeah, I think it's too dark if I go that way and too bright if I go that way, so I want it right on the one. My camera's automatic exposure settings were right on the money with this. Now I'll do another adjustment layer and color balance. And the whole thing feels maybe a little too magenta to me. So I'll shift it a little bit in the greens and the midtones. Just a touch towards the yellows, maybe a touch towards the cyans. Then play with the shadows. I tend to like cooler shadows. And warmer highlights. This is based on your own taste. You can run it through actions if you like. You could do channel mixer to try to mix out perfect white balance. But I like this. In color balance, if you do preserve luminosity, it will make the darks just as dark as they were before you shifted the colors. And you could try that. Usually when I do that, I'll do it as a separate layer. So for instance, I'll take this, and now with the adjustment layers, in order to merge that all into one photo that looks like this, I will hold down Option, and I'll say Layer, Merge Visible. I'll drag that to the top, and now it's one photo that's flattened, that's everything underneath. And now I'll do the direct adjustment. Image adjustment, color balance, preserve luminosity, and shift it in those ways. And it gives me kind of more contrast. And then, because it's on its own opaque layer, I can overlay that on top of everything else. In fact, I can even use an overlay blending mode and then decide how much I want those dark shadows to remain dark. Keep it really crisp. So I like that. It's kind of clean and severe. The color notes work. The gradations work. I like the yellow that's coming out at the edges inside the building. So I'm going to save this as Carl, assignment 8. Number 2, processed to the desktop. First as a PSD. There it is. And then as a JPEG. And then I pull the JPEG from the original raw exposure from my memory card, and I see that difference. Oh, that's why. So I'll move the PSD down here. That's going to go for my folder. That's my working file. These are the 2 JPEGs that I would upload for assignment 8. Unprocessed, processed. Pretty big difference. All about the end product feeling deliberate. All right, last one. All of them have a very linear theme. So I want to go with this one. This is a final in my series. And this one's pretty close to what I want, but it'd be interesting to see what those angles would look like vertical, what these angles would look like vertical, and see what that does. Maybe these horizontal. Make a duplicate of it. Command T. Put some guides down so I kind of know what I'm going for. And here I'm going to do the verticals first because they're the ones that need the most adjustment. So I have a vertical leaning that way and a vertical leaning that way. That's kind of that 3-point perspective is at play here. And I want to negate the 3-point perspective. So instead of looking like I'm looking up at it, it will feel like I'm floating and looking flat on at something. So first I use skew and I start tugging it out. I'm looking at this line right now. Skew, tugging it out. Now looking at these lines. Pretty extreme. And I need to get all those verticals worked out first before I start worrying about the horizontal. So I've got that vertical. This takes a little bit more and I'll get these verticals. Remember, I can't go like this because I'll actually lose the picture. You can only roll out. And that can be limiting when you're doing 3-point. It's really going to distort it, but I'll show you how we get it back, just using scale. So that vertical is on, that vertical is on, that vertical looks on. Okay, so then I hit return. I've got my verticals. But this is a huge difference. Right? So now I'm going to make a duplicate of that. And the first thing I'm going to do is just stretch it up again to get to its original proportion. See, to its original height. And now I worry about maybe that vertical and that horizontal. So I'm adapting this quite a bit just to show you the power of these tools. So one more vertical, so I'm going to do, because I've got these verticals set, for this one, I'm just going to use skew and I'm going to start tugging it in just a little bit, keep it very subtle, and a little bit out on that side. And then we use a different transform tool for our horizontals. So I want to make sure I keep these verticals. Looks like I need to tug it out a little bit on that side. And just a little bit on this side. All right, now, to get the horizontals horizontal, I'm going to make a duplicate, hit Command T, and now use Distort. Now, Distort is just like skew, except you can go in both directions. So you can do a lot of damage, right? I could do crazy things to it. But instead, I just want to use it to make my horizontals horizontal while keeping my verticals vertical. As complicated as that sounds, and you're able to kind of push and pull it and refine it. And you should be able to get that mix in sometimes unexpected ways. Okay, I'm almost there. I lost my vertical a little bit on these two. Oh, it looks actually pretty good. So I'm going to do one more round of distorting, just focusing on those verticals.
Did you get into skew command what?
Command T is how you get to all those transform tools. All right.